So Khaled Furani is an assistant professor of anthropology in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at Tel Aviv University, working on social theory, modernity, language and literature, secularism, and Palestine.
Do all that?
That's what I heard. His book, Silencing the Sea, Secular Rhythms in Palestinian Poetry, was published by Stanford University Press in 2012, so thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. Thank you, everyone, for coming here. Thank you, Nan, for this very, very invigorating paper. And I want to thank also Anat, Roy, and Chris for inviting me to comment on this paper. I felt it was a fantastic invitation. Appreciate the opportunity. Because what I liked what I read, and I'll say why soon. And it was also an opportunity to revisit the Puritans. People I like to read about what, and I feel in many ways they have given us the principle that gives us a lot of the principles of our modern existence, insofar as it's American existence, and a lot of times I find myself going back to them to figure out things about us. It happened to me when I was trying to understand a lot about Zionism, and found that they were helpful. But this is not why we're reading the Puritans here. No, serious. If we want to see how God is made to operate as a real estate party, the Puritans are a good source. But I'm here to talk about sound. And let me first, what I'll do is recapitulate some of the signposts in Nan's paper, and also offer or go over some what I consider hovering themes, or it'll be more accurate to say murmuring themes, more befitting of this paper. Potential developments. That will be basically it. And I apologize in advance for any want of coherence or clarity. As we speak, I'm in the midst of moving a house, so if human statements are indefinitely marked by frailty and infinitude, my talk today, my comments will be especially marked by that frailty and finitude. In any case, so I'll begin by saying to you what I hear Nan saying. Okay, that will be the subject of the following moments. Is that Nan is giving us an occasion here to see an event that helps us identify the historical importance of orality in the development of common law, the primacy of the oral as in AU, in Hutchinson's mode of being, whether in encountering God or encountering the emissaries of God's laws, i.e. Winthrop. She heard Winthrop, but she meaning Anne Hutchinson. She heard Winthrop, but hearing him speak doesn't mean that she hears the law. And to hear God is the art of listening to different voices, it turns out in Anne's experience. It shows how the law operates by means of oral distinctions, Nan tells us. This is to say, it matters in Anne's mode of being where and when voices are heard. Hutchinson, sometimes I call her Anne, sometimes Hutchinson. Hutchinson hears Winthrop's voice, but she doesn't hear the law in it. In hearing him, however, we have before us the binary of visual reasoning versus plurality of audial perspectives. This is what I took Nan to be saying. This is what I heard or misheard Nan to be saying, that in Hutchinson's we have a plurality of experience of reasoning, while in Winthrop we have some binarity, some reductive way of responding to others. Anne's revelation isn't unexpected, also Nan argues. It's not unexpected, it's not an aberration, rather it's consistent with her entire legal strategy that she uses throughout the trial. It is consistent, at the very least, with Anne's claim that the law is about hearing what people are saying. If only her opponents, meaning if only Anne's opponents understood the place of hearing in law or in trial, they would have understood what she meant by saying or by claiming that she heard God. And finally, in terms of recapturing some of the major stations in Nan's writing, it's this text about the importance of listening, or the importance of listening in the operation of law, and focusing on specifically on the evanescence of orality, AU, one of those most fragile features of that mode of being in the world. Now, the disquiet, I must add, and here I will end my recapitulation of Nan's text, is the disquiet that in some part animates Anne and maybe animates Nan's paper, is why should the law punish Anne for an oral distinctions that she makes in order to identify better and worse preachers? Let me now, having completed what I took to be, right or wrongly, the main features of Nan's text and Nan's argument, let me pose some questions and some themes for further development, and sometimes for alerts from potential pitfalls in the way this work could continue to develop. And it's a great work to continue to develop. The first question that visited me was, is this shift to the visual in the modern era a position that is so central for Nan to take and to presume in writing this essay? Is this shift to the modern singular or seasonal? Let me elaborate when I ask that. I have in mind the tradition that I study and from which I come, is Islamic jurisprudence or theology. For example, the 11th century the 12th century jurist Al-Ghazali has this haunting phrase to my mind, where he says, in this world forever images will prevail over meanings. Images will forever prevail over meanings. With the idea that in Islamic jurisprudence there is this binary debate between images and meanings, as if meanings is the harder to get, meanings are harder to grasp than images. But the reason I raise this, because in reading Al-Ghazali we get a sense that the rivalry, as it were, between visuality and orality is not a singular event, but rather it's an epochal one that's bound to return. It ebbs and flows. Am I being clear here? I'm trying to say that Al-Ghazali gives me a sense that the shift to modernity, as a shift to to the ascendancy of visuality, is not necessarily unprecedented, and it's not necessarily irreversible or one-time event, but it's bound to happen with the reversibilities and so forth. And in fact, one could argue that the monotheistic critique of idolatry, I hope I'm not saying this too soon, I'm trying to be brief, economic as well, as panoramic, is that the monotheistic critique of idolatry problematizes the claim that the shift to modernity has been an ascendancy of the visual. I'm thinking of the Quranic story of the rebuke of the Israelites when they asked, according to the Quranic narrative, when the Israelites asked Moses that they would believe in his message only if he could help them see God. And the idea here that what is God is an entity to be seen or heard. And that's one of the definitions that monotheism, as I know it, gives us of idolatry, is wanting to see as opposed to wanting to hear. Where does this take me? Why am I going all this? Because I want to suggest to Nan that perhaps the rivalry between these senses, the hierarchies in which different cultures arrange our senses, is also a rivalry about different orders of truth. Truths to be seen versus truths to be heard. Truths that are immediate, truths that are distant, and so on and so forth. How are we doing with time? How much time do I have left? Not much. I promise, Nan, that whatever I don't complete here, I will be able to continue later. This task of linking different regimes of senses to different regimes of truth is especially pressing if Nan wants to address the question about Hutchinson's argument as an argument for honing our discernment between immediate and remote sounds. And one could make the claim, one could find the claim that the shift to the modern is not simply an ascendancy of the visual from text ranging from Plato all the way to Heidegger. I don't want to do no name dropping here, but the last text I'm familiar with closer to this table is Philippe Nonet's Antigone's Law. That in some ways has similar contours of a woman facing a man, the man having a greater authority in the court, and so on and so forth. I just invite you to include that text in the conversation as differences as being part of different regimes of truth. Let me end by asking you how useful is it to state that the law question, and that's where I'll end, even though that's not all I have to say. How useful is it to state that the law and not science is the one that first banished the audio and preferred the visual? Arguing for the primacy of the visual in law doesn't require you to presume or to prove that the law more than science has banished the oral. And I will stop here. Thank you very much.